Hey guys, welcome to my channel. This is my first channel. After kind of debating internally for a while, I decided to post this video. I'm going to start by telling my personal story. So my name is Alex Turek. I am 47 years old. I'm an immigrant from the former Soviet Union. I came to America 25 years ago. It's gonna be almost 26 soon. And I opened my own business at 28. So I want to tell you the story about how I came here, the difficulties I faced, the challenges, the wins, the losses, and how I started. So I was born in a former Soviet Union, in Ukraine. Back then, Ukraine and Russia were together. I was born in a little city called Zaporozhye in Ukraine. And when I was 1 year old, my parents moved to St. Petersburg, or back then it was called Leningrad. Very beautiful city, big city. Back then I think it was about 7 or 8 million. Now it's probably closer to 10. And it's considered to be like a Paris of Russia. Really like a very beautiful Baroque type of buildings built in a 18th century, 19th century. Used to be the home of the Russian Tsars. So really very pretty. It's located on a bunch of canals. It has a world famous museum there called Hermitage. So that's where I grew up. Grew up in a very cultured place. My parents were, they were, simple people. My father was an engineer. My mom was an English teacher. They raised me and my brother, who's my twin brother, well. My mom actually, interestingly enough, started speaking English to me and to my brother when I was 6 years old. She spoke English. She was self-taught. She learned from by listening to BBC radio, and she decided it would be good for us, to learn another language, and specifically English. Back then, she didn't know that I'm going to end up in America speaking English, but it was a nice prophetic touch on her behalf. And my father taught me math, which also he didn't know it's going to come handy, but definitely it came very handy in my career as entrepreneur. A very basic math, but the ability to do mental math was is still very important. My brother and I were sent to boarding school when we were 7 years old. Boarding school in America has a very bad connotation. It's where they send kids that misbehave or annoy their parents. We were actually sent to boarding school, a very good one, to learn English even better, and to really be educated, to receive a top education. Because majority of the people graduating from this boarding school would go into foreign service. They would become like diplomats. Some of them probably became spies, like it is in Russia. I was speaking English probably 4 or 5 hours a day, because a lot of the courses were taught in English. Since 7 years old. My brother and I went there for a couple of years. It was a little bit far away. It took us an hour to get there, and would stay there from Monday to Friday. So we went there for 2 years. It was a good education. It was a little bit rough, like a lot of things in Russia. A lot of fights. Teachers were very strict. Kind of slapping us around here and there if we misbehaved, which back then it was normal. And at the age of 9, we were moved back, kind of to go to day-to-day to school, not to be in boarding school. And we stayed there for two more years. And then at the age of 10, my parents decided to move to Israel. My mom is Jewish, my father is Russian, and we moved to Israel. I did not know what Israel would be like. I did not know I was Jewish, or what being Jewish is like. But at that time, so 1990, the Soviet Union was collapsing. Really, I do remember as a kid the empty shelves, long lines, and just a lot of nervous people around. My parents are kind of like, I remember them having, stressed and very intense conversations, kind of, so we wouldn't hear about food, about lines, about security, about everything that's going on. But luckily we left when we were 10 years old and moved to Israel, which is, a very different country, not only climate-wise, but just temperament-wise from Russia. Very intense country, small country. You can drive from south of Israel to north of Israel, probably take you 7-8 hours at the most. It's kind of the size of America's, probably the size of New Jersey, which is, fairly, not a very large state. And went to high school there, went to the army there, and we, when I was 21, I had an opportunity to come to America. The way I came to America was also very interesting, and I think maybe it will resonate with some of you. It's kind of I never planned coming here. I was in my last year of the army. And I was working in a hotel. I was working in a hotel as a night receptionist. I was always very friendly with guests. I spoke, pretty good English, and I decided to kind of help some older man who was around looking for direction. So I said, like, sir, can I help you? And we struck a conversation. We became very friendly. He was a guest stay in a hotel. I looked lost. I just explained to him where he needs to go, where was the, different tourist attraction restaurants, where was safe to go, where was not safe to go. And we became friends. We became friends over time. And then he one day he said to me, Alex, listen, it's my last day here. I want to thank you for being very kind to me, and I want to invite you for dinner. So I said, I didn't suspect anything bad. It was a very normal, person, but I then become kind of my very friendly. I said, sure, why not? So we sat down. Back then, it was in Israel, it was a fancy restaurant called Pizza Hut. I'm sure you heard of it. And we sat down to eat. And then as we ordered our pizzas, and as we were waiting for pizza, we decided to we started just struck a conversation. He was asking me about what am I doing in the army, what I'm planning to do, what my parents are doing. So I told him, listen, I would like to go to university, but my parents are not wealthy by any means. Actually, we're kind of lower middle class. They were still struggling to find the right jobs, get paid well, And I said to him, like, I'd like to go to university, but I really don't know if I have, if I have the means. Maybe I'll go part time. Maybe I'll go to like 2-year school or something, and I'll figure something out. Then he kind of looked at me. He said, Alex, do you mind if I ask you some questions? I said, sure, shoot, go ahead. So instead of asking me questions, he called the waitress and he asked her for a bunch of napkins. And I said, well, in the beginning he said, do you have a piece of paper? She said, no. He said, how about napkins? And he took a bunch of napkins and he said, do you have anything to write with? She said, yes, I do. She gave a pen. And then he started writing scribbling some things on napkins and would give them to me. I looked at it, I looked at the napkin, and it was like a math equation, pretty complicated one. And, he said, Alex, you told me you're a good student, you like math, you like sciences, do you mind solving this equation? So I said to him, sure. So, I solved it, because it took me maybe a minute, gave him back the napkin. He looked at it, okay, looks good. And he wrote another equation on another napkin, gave it to me. I solved it, then he did it again. So that kept going for another 10 minutes. Then he said to me, how's your physics? You good? So he wrote a couple of physics equations and asked me to solve them. And he said, how about chemistry? Then he wrote a couple of chemistry equations, asking to balance them. So we went like this for different subjects. Most of them were hard subjects like sciences and math. And then the pizza arrived, and we started eating pizza. And then he asked me again, what are your plans? Do you have a brother? When you finish in the army? And then he stood up and kind of paid for the pizza, thanked me, said, Alex, tomorrow I'm leaving back to the States. It was very nice knowing you. Thank you for helping me out with all my questions and being patient with me, and I'll see you around. And then when he was walking away, he turned around and he asked me, how do you spell your last name? And I said to him, I spell my last name for him. And he said he walked into a hotel, waved at me, and I haven't seen him in a long time. Then all of a sudden I'm sitting, now this is year probably late 99, late 99. I'm receiving a call, maybe a couple months after I met Harold. I'm receiving a call and it says, Alex, you have a FedEx envelope in a hotel waiting for you. And I said, FedEx envelope? I don't know what FedEx is. It says it's from somebody in America. I was like, I definitely don't know anybody in America. It's a mistake. Send it back. I said, no, it's for you. The person was insisting. I came over, I opened the envelope, and it was really addressed to me. It was said Alex Turek, FedEx. Opened the envelope, pulled out, there was some paperwork there. Pulled out, and immediately as I pulled out, I saw $100 bills. Really, kind of the first thing that, caught my attention. So I counted, there were 100, there were 10 $100 bills together, stapled together. There was an application, college application, just on pieces of paper, community college. And there was a little letter typed up on a typewriter. Now again, I know what back then, I don't know if you guys know what a typewriter is, but maybe some of you, people my age, know that before computers, there used to be typewriters. And that's what, Harry typed his letter on. And it said, Dear Alex, you and I met a couple months ago. And I was very impressed with your knowledge of math and your conscientiousness, your English and your honesty. Because I've seen you could have taken advantage of me, misled me in different directions, but you were honest. You told me a real opinion about where to go, which restaurants were good, so forth, so on. And I decided to give you a chance and invite you to come to America and study. Here's an application to college, community college. Please fill it out. and return it to me. Here's my phone number in case you need it. Here's my address. And the $1,000 are for you to buy a ticket, a round trip ticket to America, since I know your parents cannot afford it. So, no need to say I was quite shocked when I read this, and I really didn't know what to do. So I talked to my parents, and my mom said, Alex, I don't know. This guy looks real. He has his phone number. Maybe I should call him. My father said to me, hey, listen, just probably some bored old guy, don't even bother with this. Just, thank him, take the money, thank him, and go to Europe. Like do that trip you really wanted to, the backpacking trip in Europe. And I decided to listen to my mom. My mom, thank God. My mom called Harry, and she spoke English, and she spoke to him for about an hour, and I was kind of like listening to her. What is she saying? What's going on? I was trying to read her face, like, is it a yes? Is it a no? Is he for real? Is he joking? Is he, what's the story there? She hangs up the phone. She looks at me. She goes, listen, Alex, I don't know. Seems for real. Maybe a little odd, a little quirky, but seems like a sincere, older guy who really wants to help others. There's maybe a legacy, maybe he wants to help out, but truly, he's truly interested in helping you. Now, being, she said also he's Jewish, like we're also Jewish, so I can maybe find some synagogues in the area and call up on him and find out. So, she did, she had some, there was no Google back then, so it was 99, but I think she Yahoo'd a couple places, maybe she called a few people. And she probably a couple of days later, she comes back to me, listen, Alex, I called a couple of synagogues. One of them actually knows him, in the area he lives, and says, like, a good guy, has been, been going to our synagogue for a while, honest, charitable, friendly, kind, really good person. So she comes to me, listen, why didn't you give it a shot? Buy yourself a ticket and go over there. I decided to roll the dice,20following my mom's advice, and it was one of the best advices I've got in my life. I bought the tickets, and on November 22, 1999, I arrived in America with leftover money in my pocket, which is maybe I don't know how much money I had, maybe $200 was left after buying the ticket. And it's all money I had to my name, and I had one suitcase, and I didn't know what was going to happen next. So Harry turned to be real. He lived in a very large apartment. I had a room to myself, and ended up going to community college. And I'm forever grateful to him. And also I ended up bringing my twin brother. I know the story. And we lived there basically. In this very large apartment, and he became like a mentor to us. I would say probably like an adopted father, a father figure, a friend, an inspiration. And he really taught me a lot of things that I know now. So one of the reasons why I'm making this channel is to honor his legacy, honor the legacy of Harry, who and paid forward to other entrepreneurs who are immigrants, people who are, maybe a little bit underdogs like I was, not sure of themselves, don't know what to do, and not sure what's possible. And this is the reason why I started this channel, to help you guys out, maybe to inspire you, maybe to share some of my, successes and failures, so you don't have to repeat them. So hopefully you find this first video useful, and I will try very much to post once a week, probably from my office here, and we'll take it from there. Let me know in the comments how you like it, and subscribe to my channel if you find this interesting.